Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about which Godfest exclusive to choose for your weekly medal exchanges featuring Valkyrie Ciel, Zeus Giga, and Athena Non. So, Monday marks the start of when we received the second medal to Monster Exchange for various 7-star Godfest exclusives, and before I go any further, I want to stress that once you do log in the respective time period and receive the respective medal, it can sit in your monster box indefinitely. These medals do not expire once in your monster box, but obviously if you miss the login time period to acquire said medal, it is possible to miss it. So that means once you have your medal, there is no rush or pressure to monster exchange for a card. And in fact, it is better to wait and see which card would be the most valuable for your given monster box. And things might change down the road. One of the worst things you could possibly do is monster exchange haphazardly for a card you didn't necessarily need or could use well, and then only find out later on in the week or like months that you really needed something else. And for the case of Valkyrie Ciel, Zeus Giga, and Athena Non, all of these cards have received new or about to receive new and powerful evolutions, which in turn can give them much more viability for your monster box. And the main problem of these new evolutions is that they require you to clear an incredibly challenging dungeon to actually get the drop, and because the dungeon is challenging, you may not be able to get the drop. So what I would suggest is don't even monster exchange for any of them, even if you know you probably would like to get one of them, until you actually have the drops themselves or have the capacity to clear the dungeon that gives the drops. Because again, let's say you acquire like one of the cards and you can't clear the dungeon for like half a year plus. By then, maybe they have lost some of their relevance and then it's been a fruitless exchange and maybe something else would have been more valuable. So like I said, there is no need to rush and hastily monster exchange for a card at this point in time. Just log in during this time period, enjoy the medal sitting in your box, and sit on it. So, continuing the trend, I'm going to be talking about the value for each card for the respective events or respective medals. So, for the Valkyrie Ciel, Zeus Giga, Athena Non, or the Pad Appreciation Medal, Valkyrie Ciel is going to be, in most cases, the best choice you can pursue. And the reason for that is because in both of their forms, they're essentially nearly identical aside from a color change and then ever so slight stat distribution change and one typing being different. Point of the matter is they're nearly the same thing, and they are oftentimes going to be best in slot for their respective teams for like mono fire or mono water teams, because they have double 10 combo via Super Awakenings. They have a VDP as well. And in all honesty, double 10 combo with a VDP tends to just be the best way to have offensive awakenings. It's the most efficient. For 3 awakenings, you are able to double damage cap with ease, and you are also able to do damage against void spawns in a meaningful manner. So point is, huge amounts of damage output against all types of spawns. They can take 8 latent slots, so they can double damage cap and then like 2 SDR or like the big RCV latent or whatever you actually need for the given dungeon. So huge amounts of offensive prowess, 4 skill boosts, 3 enhanced heart orbs, which has beautiful synergy with their large RCV stat. In fact, they can often act as a reasonably strong healing solution for your given teams. And even if your team doesn't need a healing solution, having one is always meaningful because healing more is more. Like, if I'm taking large hits repeatedly, being able to heal back up to full health with relative ease is a wonderful thing overall. So, great awakenings, great stat distribution, and if we look at their active skill, it is actually beautiful as well. Both Valkyries will give you 1 turn of 75% damage reduction. And then you also get 2 times orb movement time. So you get a huge shield, which is valuable in virtually every single challenging content at this point in time. Movement time buff because yay, and you also get to unlock the board and then change all hearts to their respective colors, so hearts to water or hearts to fire. So a valuable active skill because in Shura 2, 3, and very like MD dungeons, being able to tank large hits is meaningful. And in fact, in Shura 2 and 3, their bosses' movesets when they go below 50% for the first time is an exceptionally large hit. So having a shield for that is needed. Having movement time buff helps alleviate some team building constraints. Again, orb unlocking. She's doing so many different and valuable things. So to reiterate, healing solution, damage solution, valuable active skill. Like, They do a bit of everything, and in all honesty, having 2 Valkyries is actually valuable and meaningful because you would probably want to have one in each evolution because there's a good chance you're going to be playing different colored teams. And the fact that they have that sub-attribute being unique does help with team building for all attribute-required dungeons because you just have a better choice, or oftentimes going to be the best choice for their respective color attribute. And like I said, I feel like Valkyrie is going to be the best choice for most players, but again, if you can't clear and beat the dungeon, you can't get these evolutions, it's going to obviously be a bit sadder of an affair, but that also applies to all the other cards. Force, Zeus Giga, again, they're basically identical aside from a couple of small nuances like colors and typing and slight stat changes, but for the most part they are the same. And they are, I think, reasonable cards. Like, they're not bad by any means, but they're quite situational, I feel, overall. Both the Zeus Gigas have up to 4 skill boosts or 5/7 combos and 2 enhanced combo awakenings for their respective colors. So large personal damage and large team damage, but they obviously have no solution against voids. But hey, we look at their active skill, it's 2 turns of void, damage void, and then 2 turns of bonus combos and unlocking all orbs, changing the top row to their respective color. So as a whole, it's still a reasonably strong active, but at the same time, you may or may not necessarily be playing a team that needs to have void, damage, void. Like, it all depends. Like, I feel like for like Seawolf teams, like, you usually have quite a bit of void VDP damage potentially, but again, maybe running Zeus Giga is not terrible because everyone's damage is increased, Seawolf's attack multipliers increased. Maybe you can make some arguments for utilizing Zeus Giga on those teams, and of course, you don't have to worry about VDP ever as long as they actually charge up, but I feel like it is a bit of a situational stretch. Like, if I only could have in a vacuum for like my Seawolf teams or Rosalind teams, because both of those are relevant fire leaders, I could have Valkyrie or Zeus. I'm going to pick Valkyrie in almost every situation just because Valkyrie is solving mechanics that you need to directly address. You can VDP your way through most void spawns, so I think it's nice, but I think it's just a little bit awkward overall. And their leader skills look nice on paper until you read the fact that they have to be above 80% health, which is just not going to happen, unfortunately. So they are strong cards, I feel, but they're just quite situational overall. I think it's difficult to fit into a given team, but of course something like that may change. Remember, these medals do not expire, and if you don't have a good choice of a card you want to get right now, just simply wait and hold on and see if something comes out in the future. And then finally we come to Athena Non. And in Athena Non, in her base or her first evolution form, they have respectable amounts of personal damage, especially when you factor in the TPAs, which means they could be a feasible sub for your Daytona teams. You also have a board unlock, which is helpful, and you change dark to light and then water to heal, so not a bad orb changer at all, and you also get to reduce damage by 50%. So a 50% damage reduction shield does help in Shura 2 and Shura 3, because like I said, the bosses do have a larger hit when below 50% for the first time, so a useful active in that regards there. They do have TPA, so they are going to be doing large amounts of personal damage, but at the same time, you may or may not necessarily need these cards for your Daytona teams. It is nice that they come out ready to use. They don't have complicated evolution materials for these 2 forms, so I guess that is nice, but at the same time, you may or may not necessarily need them for your Daytona teams. For her green form, she is a 10 combo with many TPAs and a huge attack stat. So monstrous amounts of personal damage, but we don't have a place to use her on. And that's obviously a big drawback. Like, if a wood TPA monster comes out and they obviously want to match TPAs, Athena Non in her wood form is going to be a meaningful choice. But at this point in time, there's nowhere to really utilize it, so I wouldn't really think about this form because I really can't fathom a place to use it. Because right now, the best wood teams tend to want to utilize blobbing or rows or VDPs, and TPAs just don't have a way to be utilized. And then finally, for Athena Non's dark form, she has super blind resist, which is great. She can have up to 4 skill boosts or better offensive prowess, and her offensive might is immense. She has 4 attack while below 50% awakening, so that's 16 times personal damage without a combo requirement, and her attack stat is comically large. That's a huge attack stat, so massive amounts of personal damage. If you take the other attack while below 50%, wow, just even higher, because why not? Or you take VDP so you can actually kill Void Spawns. So great offensive might, 8 latent slots, so double damage cap plus something of your choice as well. And the active skill is a 1-turn cooldown. And 1-turn cooldowns get me excited because they have the ability to be inherited over top with relative ease. You can inherit a delay, a shield, Fujin style active skill, whatever you need to have, you can inherit with ease on Dark Athena Non. And the active skill itself does give you a health cut of 50%, which can be meaningful for pushing yourself into your damage threshold. You get to unlock the whole board and then 1 turn of orb movement time. So it is quite a powerful 1-turn cooldown active skill. And on paper, I think she is great, but at the same time, I can't really fathom a place to truly leverage and utilize her on at this point in time. Like, there's no dark team at this point that wants to be low health for like tackling endgame content. I guess farming stuff, yes, it's great for farming stuff because huge amounts of unconditional damage is meaningful, but again, you may have already other options available. And again, these are going to be difficult to acquire evolution materials, so like I said, don't monster exchange until you can get those materials or at least reliably clear the dungeons, which means you will get those materials at some point. So I think Dark Athena is powerful, but I just don't think there's any particular spot to truly utilize them on very well. And as a leader, their multipliers are nice and thick, but the biggest drawback is you have to match dark and light, and her active skill doesn't system it for you, so you could be in a bit of a pickle, so to speak, because you will not have your damage reduction unless you have dark and light orbs, but you can't spawn dark and light orbs with her active skill. It makes it obviously much riskier overall. So, in conclusion, I do love these events because it's a wonderful feeling being able to acquire a Godfest exclusive that you need, which will improve your monster box tremendously. Now, the biggest drawback of this series is that they require rare evolution materials to actually form, and it may be difficult for a more mid-range or even like below mid-range and early like beginner box to actually tackle these dungeons, so it can be problematic. So like I said, do not monster exchange until you have a dedicated use for them, or you're at least able to acquire the gems reliably, because you never know, things might change down the future. And for myself, whenever I monster exchange for something, I expect to get value out of it right now, because generally speaking, the newer the card is, that tends to be when they're at their peak in terms of power creep performance. So with that being said, hopefully all you lovely ladies and gentlemen have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the very best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.